Hi and welcome to another video. So this is a follow-up video relating to my GT-AX11000 Asus router. So I had a lot of questions on my last video around the advanced features that I showed on the settings within these on the web. So accessing it via your web browser like Chrome or Edge. So I've since I've had the router, I've got quite a lot of devices that connect to it, around 30 to 32 devices, all ranging from wireless N all the way to the new Wi-Fi 6 or 802.11ax, the new standard. So that would be my new iPhone 12 and then the Samsung Galaxy Fold that are capable of the new Wi-Fi 6 standard, and they can connect to the router around between 900 and 1200 megabits per second. And so of course you don't actually get those speeds. When I've done speed tests before, I'm getting around about 700 to 800, but I think it's still quite fast enough, to be honest. So I wanted to actually show you now the professional tab that I've come across within the wireless settings. So under advanced settings, wireless, and then professional tab, as you can see here, it has a lot of more advanced features where you can actually specify and you can enable and disable certain features. And you can see here, you can select the band. So you can select, as we know, this is a tri-band, so it's got 3 bands. So it's got the 2.4 gigahertz band, and then the first 5 gigahertz and the second. As you can see here, these are the settings I've been trying around to see if I can get anything faster. So majority of my wireless devices are connecting on the 2.4 gigahertz frequency still. So none of them are Wi-Fi 802.11g. Most are N and AC, but they're connecting on the 2.4 gigahertz band. So as you can see here, some of the settings I've actually changed to try and get a bit higher speed, because with like the smart speakers and my video doorbell that we've got is constantly updating to the cloud, so I want them to connect as fast as possible. Most of my devices, including the cameras we've got around that connect to Wi-Fi, even on the external of the house, because I get quite good signal with this router. So I've been playing around to see if I can get a bit faster connection. So first of all, what you can see here is I've got this one selected to the 2.4 gigahertz frequency. And of course, before you start changing these settings, I would advise that you are either connected to the internet or on your home network via your computer via Ethernet cable, or if you're connecting to it wirelessly, like I am using my iPad, whatever settings you're going to change on here, because you can, if you start changing too many things, you can sort of disconnect yourself. So like here, I'm going to change and upgrade settings on the 2.4 gigahertz frequency, but I'm actually connecting to the router using the 5 gigahertz. So either way, so if you're going to go and update the 5 gigahertz frequency settings using this professional tab, I'd advise then to connect to the 2.4, so you've always got a stable connection when it reconnects, or if you've changed any settings and it causes you not able to connect, just as a safety precaution, to be honest. So it's always good to start off with the defaults, and also you can always do a screenshot to remember what things you've changed, because there's a lot of drop downs here, and if you're like me, I've forgotten what I've changed. So as you can see down here, you've got enable radio. So of course you always have that to yes, because you want that connected. And again, if you do want any more further information, you can click on the actual some of the words here, and it gives you a up to date here, like a description, some more details. So again, you can see here you've got enable wireless schedule. So basically you can have it come and your Wi-Fi switch on and off, but of course most people will want it on all the time, unless you've got children, you want to cut it off so they don't have it and they go to sleep. You've got set AP isolated. So again, where it says here, this feature, when is enabled, wireless clients or devices will not be able to communicate with each other. So it's good if you're using this as a business kind of device, the router, but in a home instance, I'd say to leave that switched to no, because you don't want to isolate each device. Because if you've got like Chromecast or you want to share files and things like that, it defeats the purpose of having such a fast router like this. It's more of a sharing thing and a more home environment. Roaming assistant, so this one is if you've got that AI mesh, so if you've got another Asus router, then you can for roaming, so if you go between the two, and also roaming assist is another feature. You can actually go into advanced settings within the router, and it can, if you drop below a certain signal strength, it'll change you over from 5 gigahertz frequency to the 2.4 and things like that. Again, you can play around with them, but I've never seen a need to be honest. The router as it's set up and everything else has been fast enough. Next one, you've got the Bluetooth coexistence. So as again here, when you do enable this, it does also disable a few other like TX bursting and things like that. So I'd advise, I mean, I've got Bluetooth devices like keyboards and mouses and remote controls and things like that. I leave it disabled and it hasn't affected anything. Again, the next one is the enabling the IGMP snooping. Again, I advise that to leave that enabled. As you can see here, what this does, it monitors the communications and it optimizes the wireless multicast traffic, so it means it can be more efficient. Next thing down is the multicast rate. So normally I think the default, this is set to auto. So I have been playing around. As I said, most of my devices, even though they are some of them on external walls and things like that around the house, so they're not super close to the router, I was trying around here. So this normally sets the default, the lowest connection speed for them. So of course, if it's set to auto, the furthest device will try and connect, and sometimes they'll connect to like at 2 megabytes and things like that, when megabytes per second. And so on here I've selected the OFDM54. So basically that requires that device to connect at the slowest it can connect is at 54 megabytes per second. So of course, in theory, this is supposed to make other devices connect much faster. So the slowest device you've got on there, if you've got like one connecting at 2 megabytes per second, and then you've got like a doorbell like I have, it connects 144 megabytes, and you want to keep everything as fast as connected as possible. So it does slow it down if you've got very slow devices connected to the same network, like on the 2.4 gigahertz. So again, you can play with this to see what is the best for your environment, but I built it up. I went from 12 to 24 and then 54, and as I said, I've had no issues with devices connecting, and it does seem to have made the other devices run a bit quicker, and especially as my like IP cameras and the doorbell, it seems to connect actually a few seconds quicker now. So it might be help out someone else as well. So the next one here, as you can see, it's got a lengthy check here. Basically, I'll just leave that enabled. There is more information here that you can see what it does, but I think it's you don't need to change anything. Same for the next 3 boxes. You don't really need to change anything there, so I'd leave that. Enable TX bursting, I think that's for legacy. So you've got talking about 802.11G devices, so not many are wireless G anymore. Most the minimum is N, but you can leave that there just in case you've got it doesn't affect any other devices. So then we look at enable WMM, and that's for as it says here, is Wi-Fi multimedia to improve the user experience. So again, so anything like to do with that for your apps, then I'd leave this enabled. You've got enable here for no acknowledgement. So this one here is quite good if you for the 5 gigahertz I found, but enabling this for the 2.4 actually decreased speed for me, because as you know, 2.4 gigahertz frequency is a lot more busier and I've got a lot more devices here. So as it says there, when enabled, it results in more efficient throughput but higher error rates. So in a noisy frequency environment, so of course the 2.4 there. So balancing with speed and error and everything else and connections, I've left that disabled. Again, on here I've enabled automatic power save, so that's quite good, so I've enabled that. And optimize the AMP DU aggregation. So as you go on here, I think that comes as default as disabled, but I've enabled that. So, and it seems to have made a more stable speed. On the modulation, I think that should be set to, as you see, you've got 802.11n, and I think it should be to MCS11. As you see, it's the newest standard, so there's a point of buying this router, and it's, you know, advanced features, as you might as well enable them all, and I've had no negative effects. Airtime fairness, again, this is quite important because it's the 2.4 gigahertz frequencies. I've enabled it is because there's a lot of clients I've connected, as I said, around 30 devices that connect to my router, so I want to make sure it gets, each device gets equal amount of time. The multi-user, multiple inputs, multiple outputs, of course, is always enabled. That basically just means it can multitask much better. So anything that helps something multitask is you want to enable. Explicit beamforming. So again, this measures, as you click on here, you can see you definitely want to enable this one and the universal one. So the difference between universal and the one here, so explicit, basically this one here is for the newer technologies. So this one here will work out how far your device away is and communication, and then try and steer the direction and improve speeds of the download and uplink to it. And universal is for legacy, so it's probably talking about wireless end devices. And lastly, as we see here, is the TX power adjustment. Of course, I can't see any reason why you'd want anything other than performance, but there's choices there for you. So next, if we go on to the 5 gigahertz frequency, you can see here. So on here, there's a few different options compared to on the 2.4. Again, I've enabled radio, so you can do that. So that's the standard, unless you want to switch it off for some reason. The scheduler, again, as I said, where you can have it turn off your Wi-Fi if you want to, so be it. And then you've got isolated, so again, where the devices can't see each other, again, I'll leave that to no. Roaming assistant, so again, as it says here, this is for when it disconnects to signal strength. So if you are connected to 5 gigahertz frequency on the Wi-Fi, as we know, it doesn't have as much range as 2.4. So that what this will do is, then if you have it enabled and some reason, say like on an iPad or your tablet or anything like that, you come to disconnect, it works out the signal is very weak and you've got a very slow connection. The router will then automatically swap you over to a 2.4 gigahertz, where you can get a faster speed. So sometimes if you've got a very big house, but then if you really have got a problem with the signal, if you want best network, is then set up a mesh network. But the option is there if you do need it. Again, like we did on the 2.4 gigahertz frequencies, we enabled the IGMP snooping, so that helps with the communication, optimizes the multicast traffic, so you want to enable that. Again, the rate I've selected is 54 again the OFDM54, as I found that I don't want the slowest connection speeds on the 5 gigahertz. I want them to connect as fast as possible, so no slow devices connecting. The next ones are for the RTS, the DTIM, and the beacon interval. I'll leave them as default. I don't think you really need to change anything. And again, we've got the TX bursting. So as we said here, this improves the transmission speed of older devices. It's not really, I've just left it on as default, so I haven't switched it off, and I have not had any anything when I've disabled it. It's not done anything good or better, because don't forget this 5 GHz frequencies mostly I've enabled for AX devices. And then you've got the enable for the multimedia apps like we did on the 2.4. And what I've done here, the difference is for the no acknowledgement, I've enabled this. So where it says there no acknowledgement is the acknowledge policy at MAC level, so that's your MAC address. When enabled, it results in more efficient throughput by higher error rates. So of course, using the 5 gigahertz frequency, it's less congestion around my area anyway, and I've got less devices connected to, so I want them to connect as fast as possible. So that's why I've enabled this, but on the 2.4 gigahertz I've disabled it. Again, you've got the here for the automatic power save delivery. So for your more advanced devices like your phones and tablets, then it's always good to enable. I haven't optimized the AMPDU for this because I found that it was slowing connections when I was changing, enabling and disabling devices for some reason. I don't understand why exactly, but I found it actually helped if I just left it disabled. The modulation scheme, again, you want it as it's the router, you want it as quick as possible, so you go for the MCS11. Then next one is airtime fairness. Again, I've enabled this, and the multi-user, multi-input, multi-output, multitasking. So of course, as usual, you want to enable that. The next one down is to do with AX, multi-user, multi-input, multi-output, and the OFDMA. So these are the new technologies you can look up, and I'll put a link in the comments for our Wikipedia page. It'll probably give you more details if you really want to know. But by default, I think this only comes with the DL for download, OFDMA only. So I can't understand why, because when I've looked this up, you want to have the point of this is a Wi-Fi 6 router. You want to take advantage of all the newest technologies, and as I said, I've got AX devices now. Of course, there's still not that many on the market, but I wanted to use the actual features of the router, so I've selected the download and upload FDMA plus the multi-user, multi-input, multi-output, and I've selected that. I've had no issues with it, and it seems to have make my devices connect quicker, like the higher speeds, like I've said, for the AX devices. So that has seemed to helped. So I've enabled that. As long as you're on the fast, I did have a problem with this when I was on the older firmware, but if you're on the current firmware that I'm on, ending in 4.3849566, have had no issues at all. Again, you've got the beam forming, two options here for AX and AC, and the universal one that's for legacy devices. I've just left those enabled. And the TX power again, you can bring it down if you want to, but of course, the point of getting this router is that you want to go as fast as possible, so you stick all the way to performance. So these are the settings I've just used, referring to mine, and I seem to have got the most speed and power out of the router. Again, yours might vary and everything else, but these are the actual settings that I've changed around. I seem to have got more connection speed. I've had no problems with disconnects, dropped buffering for saying on games or anything like that, video streaming, nothing. So they're being very reliable, and the same as the router's been very reliable as well. And none of this has changed any of the CPU when I've been checking to make sure as well, the RAM usage or anything like that. and the ping rates have not changed at all. In fact, if anything, sometimes they've increased by changing some of these settings that I've got here. I hope you found this useful anyway. I know it's not a long video, and if you do have any questions, as usual, just leave them in the comments and I'll try and answer them as best as possible, and I'll leave some more information on there. Thanks for watching, and please remember to like and subscribe.